So we're back once again to analyze even more from the recent Smash Bros. Direct. Now we've already analyzed all of the stages coming to the Wii U version, so this time we're turning our attention to the 3DS ones. But as always, please make sure to check out our previous analysis videos if you haven't already, which you can find links to in the description below. And with that, let's get started. So one of the stages that we got a much better look at is Arena Ferox from Fire Emblem Awakening. And while it looks pretty close to the original game at first, there is at least one pretty big difference, and that's the fact that it'll actually change forms throughout the battle, as shown here, just like with the Pokemon Stadium stages. In fact, just like with Pokemon Stadium, it appears there will be 5 total forms here as well, at least based on what's been shown so far. And like with that stage, we're guessing that the flat form will be the default one that begins every match, as suggested by this image of the stage selection screen, and this clip from Smash Run that might be from the beginning of the battle, assuming the countdown started at 1 minute. But it won't be long before a purple haze appears along the ground from which the other 4 forms will emerge. And again, like with Pokemon Stadium, we're pretty sure the arena will always return to the flat version first before changing to another form. But whereas Pokemon Stadium's different forms had elemental themes, Ferox Arena seems focused on rearranging platforms and walls. The first of these additional forms features a pair of statues that are holding up 3 angled platforms between them. Now, if those statues look at all familiar, it might be because they're definitely a callback to the Castle Siege stage in Super Smash Bros. Brawl. Hell, we can even see the statues shake as the characters fight around them, which likely means that they can be destroyed after too many attacks, just like in Castle Siege. The second form is columns and ruins supporting 2 different types of platforms. The thinner ones will allow players to shift through them, but the thicker ones will likely act as barriers. Now the third form has a completely different feel to it. This one has a wooden stand in the background to support some kind of machine, and that machine appears as if it'll control the movement of 2 connected platforms, as we can see they're in different positions between these 2 screenshots. The final form features a small tower and large wooden stakes in the background, and 4 separate platforms spread around the rest of the stage, 3 of which are suspended by chains. And we can't help but wonder if those chains mean the platforms might sway side to side during the battle. In addition, we can see that the pillar supporting the central platform appears to be on the same plane as the players, meaning it'll probably act as a wall that effectively divides the stage in 2, forcing players to jump over it. Alright, and that's enough about Ferox Arena, so let's move on to a never-before-seen stage being Balloon Fight. And it's doing something no Smash Bros. Game has done before, allowing you to go well beyond the left and right borders of the screen. Well, sort of, because they instantly teleport you to the other side of the screen, just like in Balloon Fight. Which could mean that you may only be able to KO opponents either off the top of the screen or by dunking them into the lake below. Although there is a possibility off-screen KOs could still be present, similar to how you can't KO yourself off the top of the screen in most of the other Smash Bros. Games. And speaking of KOs, we can see everyone's favorite fish friend is back too, and it appears he'll function just like in the original game, where he'll lunge out at any nearby opponents if they get too close to his location. But since he's underwater, you won't be able to tell where exactly he is either. And then there are the flipper obstacles. Now in both the original game and their reappearance in Smash Bros. Melee as an item, touching one would cause it to spin around for a short time, tossing anyone that touches it into the air. And it appears to function much the same here too, as we can see the top right one become active as Peach passes by. Now something else that's cool that we've since learned is that this stage won't always have the same layout, as a recently released screenshot shows that same level, but with a varying amount of platforms and flippers in completely different positions, which should add some nice variety. But the question is, will this be randomly decided at the start of the match? Or do you actually go between levels during the battle itself, kinda like in Balloon Fight? Next up is the Find Me stage based on the Street Pass game of the same name. And as you can see, it'll appear as if it'll consist of 2 main platforms separated by a short gap. And as one of our fans, King Broly, points out, this actually perfectly matches his appearance in the Find Me world map, which is a nice touch. But another key element might just be the caged prince here, who's actually a Mii character. And interestingly, that character actually changes completely between both of the clips here. So this could mean one of a few different things. One, maybe that the caged Mii is randomly selected at the start of the match, and maybe the game even pulls him directly from your 3DS's own Miiverse Plaza, which would be pretty cool. But another idea we have is, what if you can actually free those Miis, and perhaps they'll launch a magic attack in accordance to their shirt color, which would then influence the battle in some way, just like in the Find Me game. And that might just be how the Dark Lord factors into all this, who we're guessing is going to be a boss character along the lines of the Yellow Devil that Sakurai discussed in the Direct. So maybe you free the Mii after beating the boss, again just like in Find Me. After all, we already know that being the one to get the last hit in on the Yellow Devil boss rewards you in some way, so it makes perfect sense for the same thing to happen here too. But there may be one problem with this idea, and that's the fact that in the very first screenshot released for this stage, we can see an empty cage behind the Dark Lord. So where did the Mii go? Maybe you can free them earlier in order to help with the battle against the Dark Lord. Or, and this is a wild idea, but what if Miis are actually playable characters, as has been rumored? Maybe they won't appear in the cage if they're being used as a character, just like how Link won't man the train in the Spirit Track stage if you're playing as him. And speaking of Zelda, our next stage is Gerudo Valley from Ocarina of Time. And they really did a great job capturing the essence of that region here. Of course, you have the bridge spanning the valley, the Carpenter's Tent on the left, and you can even see Gerudo Fortress and the Targa Range in the back. And they even took the opportunity to embellish it too. I mean, while the lower waterfall here is right from the game, the much bigger one in the background is actually brand new. Oh, and the platforms on either side are new too. It also appears as if the level will be fairly dynamic, as we can see the bridge will give out if it endures too many attacks, as demonstrated by DK here. And the cool thing is that even this detail is fairly true to Ocarina of Time, as the bridge is similarly missing when Link visited the area as an adult in the original game. Although we are pretty sure that the bridge will actually respawn in this case, just like in the Bridge of Eldin stage from Smash Bros. Brawl. Although we can't help but wonder the carpenters from Ocarina of Time may actually return to fix it up in this case, just like they did in the game. Now when the bridge does collapse, it's not the end of the world, as there are platforms on either side that can help save you. And even these may be references to Ocarina of Time, as there were ledges in that game that appeared in similar locations, although they were quite a bit bigger. But one thing that is definitely new is this set of spikes here, just below the right platform. What are they doing there? After all, they look like they'd be pretty hard to hit since the platform directly above mostly guards against them. So we're thinking that maybe the platforms will actually give out if you stand on them too long, causing you to drop into the spikes. Now besides those spikes, there is another hazard, being the witches Kume and Kotake. God help me if I said those wrong. And we can see that, as expected, they'll fire fire attacks and ice attacks respectively. And we actually get to see the ice attack in motion, as it turns the right side of the stage into a frozen wonderland, freezing anything it touches, as DK again demonstrates. Poor guy. But not only that, but we can see the ice attack also takes out the platform here too. Unfortunately, we don't get to see the fire one in motion, but several screenshots do give us a good idea of how it will function, as we can see the left side of the stage is engulfed in flames, which similarly took out the platform on that side too. Plus, based on the fact that we can see flames lingering on the bridge here, it seems they might take it out as well. Now interestingly, all the media released so far, which granted isn't much, shows the fire and ice attacks always attacking the left and right sides of the stage respectively. So will this always be the case? Or will they ever switch it up? Furthermore, some of the screenshots show off something interesting. Now in the footage of the ice attack, we can see that besides destroying the platform, the stage itself looks mostly the same. But in this screenshot, the entire area looks as if it's taking on a blue hue, reflecting its frozen status. Similarly, we can see the same in this fire pick, as it tints the entire valley a bright red. So it looks like these attacks may be even more pronounced than the Smash Bros. Direct suggested. Okay, we're done with you now, Gerudo Valley. Next up is a living room from Nintendogs. And as we've long suspected, it appears that the layout of the level will actually change, as confirmed by these recently released screenshots. In them, we can see the main block platforms in several entirely different configurations. Plus, the toys on either side of the stage change constantly, from a shoe to a mouse toy, a chewy cheeseburger toy, and even a plushie block that will even face different directions. So that begs a question, can players interact with those toys in some way? We already see that's possible to hide in the shoe, but could players maybe use a squeaky mouse and cheeseburger toys like a spring to jump higher? And could fighting on and around the plush block cause it to shift positions, if not rotate around? But the oddest thing, of course, is how the wooden blocks are arranged. Sometimes they're stacked really high, while other times they're laid out horizontally. Now before, we occasionally thought that the Nintendogs might charge through the arena, causing everything to fly up and fall back into place in different arrangements. And while that still may be true for the rest of the toys, we kind of doubt that would cause the blocks to stack so neatly here. So what could be causing these arrangements? Is it randomly selected every time you play? Or is something else causing them to change positions? There's even footage of the villager riding his Lloyd rocket across an empty living room. I mean, there's nothing in his way. So could it start off as like a blank slate like the Arena Ferox? Although we kind of doubt it, as the stage selection screen clearly shows a living room with the blocks, unlike Arena Ferox. So who really knows? So unfortunately, it's impossible to say how exactly the stage will work, but we do know that it won't be limited to just one dog, as multiple breeds can be seen in the background. Though again, we have no idea they'll be random, or maybe they'll swap out during the match, or if they can be chosen in some way. But it's not just different kinds of dogs that will appear, as one screenshot confirms that cats can take over the living room too. Who knew a simple room could be so mysterious? Now one level that's a little less mysterious is Prism Tower from Pokemon X and Y, in which you ride a flying platform around the tower. Now we already knew from Sakurai's comments that you start at the base of the tower before working your way up, but thanks to the latest footage, we can see that you'll actually start on the ground proper, before taking to the platform. It's a little bit like the Halberd stage. But there is one thing throwing us off. Initially, we thought that the platform would start with you on ground level, before taking off about 10 seconds later, at least based on the timer in the Smash Run clip, which we guessed might be counted down from the 1 minute mark. However, there are other clips showing off that same area, only without the platform. So we now think that the platform will appear after a set amount of time, then take off on its tower loop, before eventually touching back down on ground level for a few moments before starting the whole thing all over again. Now we already knew that the time of day would change as you fly around the tower, but we can now see that you'll occasionally be joined by additional platforms along the way too. And as Sakurai has hinted at before, it appears that the main platform will also stop at the top of the tower for a chance to battle, as suggested by the additional platforms on either side here. Finally, did you notice the screens on the tower actually changed to display different things? It's another nice touch. Next up, we have Rainbow Road from Mario Kart 7. Now we already knew that this was a traveling stage, with the platform touching down at certain points along the track, just like in Mute City. And like with that stage, not only will other platforms occasionally be present when you touch down, but the racers on the track will also pose hazards too as they race around it. And that's pretty much all the things we know about it. Man, that one was easy. Now the next stage is Reset Bomb Forest from Kid Icarus Uprising, which has proven to be quite unique in that it appears to be split into 2 parts. The first part takes place in the ruins of an old castle that has a gap between the main platforms, while 3 smaller platforms rise to the right side. It's a simple enough stage, but it's filled to the brim with background detail. Looking closely, you can see a massive army clashing on the ground below, while it appears that a lot of debris is flying around in the sky above. And speaking of the background, you can see that Viridi occasionally appears there too, and we suspect she's just behind the reset bomb going off here, just like in Kid Icarus Uprising. But what's really interesting is what happens next, as the reset bomb appears to be what causes the stage to enter its second half. And we know this because you can even see the main stage dropping away as it does. In fact, Luigi even appears to land on an invisible platform, which we're guessing he'll battle on during the transition. But, unlike the stationary design of the first half, the second half looks to be a slow-moving side-scrolling level, forcing the players to navigate the twisted remains of the castle while they fight. And in a neat touch, the platforms themselves are intertwined with trees, since the reset bomb is designed to bring things back to nature. Now, along with the wild platforms, the stage also contains hazards such as the spiked enemy that flies along the bottom of the screen, and we're guessing getting knocked into him probably isn't a great idea, although it could save you from falling to your death. Otherwise, there's still very little that we know about the second half of the reset bomb forest. Like, does the stage eventually return to its stationary form? And in the footage from the direct, why is the villager all by himself here? Other pictures show multiple characters fighting it out in this section. So is it simply because he's waiting for his opponent to respawn? Or could this be a hint at another unannounced mode? And that's it for Reset Bomb Forest. So next up we have Spirit Train from Spirit Tracks. Now we've already covered a lot about this one before, but we do get a better look at some of the other cars that'll attach to your train, such as this one hauling coal, and another with 4 sets of platforms. And we also get a better look at the bomb car, and we can see it flashing in this scene, indicating it's about ready to explode. But what happens then? Will it just deal damage? Or will it perhaps disrupt the train's movement, sending everyone flying? And while we've seen the platform that hovers overhead before, we can see that it'll move independently of the train as well. But is it because it's moving, or is it because the train's speeding up or slowing down? And if that's the case, could the train's speed play a role in this stage? After all, as Fox demonstrates here, you can run along the track if you fall off the train, so perhaps the train can vary its speed, making it easier or harder to recover. Next up, we have the Super Mario 3D Land stage. Now we've already talked about this one a lot before too, and the direct doesn't really reveal much that's new. Although it does confirm that you'll be able to snag items from the question blocks, which we suspected before. And also that it doesn't take much to trigger the donated lifts, which drop mere moments after being touched. Now in a previous analysis, we had suggested that Rush might have actually been what caused the donut lift to drop, since it appeared to bob back into position after Mega Man stepped off of it. But we're now pretty sure it actually was Mega Man that triggered it, as the donut lifts in Super Mario 3D Land reacted in the exact same way. Alright, now onto our final arena, being Tortimer Island, which we finally get to see in motion, complete with the Kappa Captain and his boat. Although, there are screenshots in which he doesn't appear, which means he may come and go throughout the match. Now one of the cool things about this stage is that according to Sakurai, it'll change every time you play on it. Now as far as we can tell, the island's shape, the house, and the location of the pond all stay the same, but pretty much everything else is fair game to be changed, such as the flowers, the trees, and even the dock, which can be seen on both the left and right sides of the stage. Now interestingly, although the trees do appear to be in the background, it looks like you may be able to interact with them in some way in order to shake loose their fruit. So maybe you can pick up the fruit to regain health, or maybe you can use them as a weapon. Now it's also possible the fruit may just drop naturally throughout the course of battle. Finally, as we predicted, sharks will also appear occasionally too, and we're guessing they may be more than just a background detail. But will they just deal damage, or maybe they'll grab you and swim away? Alright, and that wraps it up for our Super Smash Bros. 3DS stage analysis. Okay, I know there's still a few other arenas that we didn't talk about, like Battlefield, the Boxing Ring, Jungle Japes, and Tomodachi Life, but the Smash Bros. Direct didn't reveal anything we didn't already know. So with that, thanks for watching, and make sure to stay tuned to GameXplain.com for more on Smash Bros. Wii U and 3DS and other things gaming too.